Glasgow Wants to Know, with your host, Mr. Uhel Barrickman.
Tonight we are beginning what we hope to be an informative program for the citizens of Glasgow. It is Glasgow Wants to Know. The purpose of the program is for information to you on various subjects that are of interest to the citizens. We request that you phone in questions that you may want to ask the people who are being interviewed or who are on a panel. And we request that you call in with questions tonight, and the number to call is 651-8341. In essence, it will be a program that is a combination interview and call-in program. For our guests tonight, we have Mayor Charlie Honeycutt, the Mayor of Glasgow, Senator Walter Baker, the representative of our district in the State Assembly, and Steve Nunn, our representative in the State Assembly. I will begin the program tonight by asking the Mayor a question. And the first question, Mayor, is what about the National Store building? What's the city going to do with it? When is it going to do it? What's going to be in it? I'm asked rather frequently, what's going on?
Good question. We bought the National Store building at a very good price, and the plans are to have a new city hall there, municipal building, where all the offices of city government, water company can all be combined in one central location, accomplish several things, cut down on running around people have to do to take care of city business. Now the building inspector's on one side of town, the street department's on another side of town, and we'll have everything in one central location. And besides making that simpler for folks, we hope that it will rejuvenate and help to keep viable our downtown area on the square, because it will keep traffic pulled in there and keep people coming down there. Therefore, the buildings around there will be more valuable for stores. The council presently has hired an architect to do a study. Some of the council members are not real pleased with that study, and we've asked some other people to do some investigating and get back to us, and that's where we are right now.
So if I understand you, as of the moment, you have no complete plans and there's no date to begin construction.
That's correct. We have architectural concepts and designs, but no complete plans yet.
What are you going to do with the old city building?
Well, the police department is very, very crowded. Of course, that building was built very many years ago, and the electrical facilities and everything else in there are very, very crowded. We have, I believe, about 5 or 6 officers using the same office in the police department. They don't have room for a lot of things that they need over there. And at one time there was a door connecting city offices with the police department. That door will be opened up again, and they will have the use of that whole side over there where we are. As far as the water company offices, some of that could be used possibly by fire department offices, or it could even be rented.
Thank you. Senator Baker, what assignments did you get on the legislative committees in the Senate? How did you get them? And have you started having meetings of your committees yet?
Taking the last question first, we've not had any meetings of any of the 3 committees to which I was assigned. I went back on labor and industry. There is no bill in the call for the special session that is in the jurisdiction of that committee, so that committee will not meet and will have no work to do during the session. I returned to the Judiciary Committee, which will, in the Senate, have its first meeting next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And, of course, we will have the vote fraud, vote buying law to redo. That'll be the first thing on the agenda. The third committee that I'm on is Education. And again, for the special session, there are no bills in the education area. So that committee will not have a meeting for any of the legislation being proposed, although we do start meeting next week on general education matters.
Has the vote fraud bill, that is the proposed bill, been introduced yet?
The bill has been introduced. I co-sponsored it with Senator Joe Meyer of Northern Kentucky. What we're going to do is parallel pretty much the existing federal vote buying law, which has been declared constitutional at the federal level. And we're going to get around some of the problems that were in the law the state Supreme Court declared unconstitutional in November. That law, incidentally, said that any expenditure for the purpose of influencing a person's vote was illegal. The expenditures for newspaper advertising, for TV advertising, for billboards, for brochures, presumably are all for that purpose of influencing someone's vote. And the court said they could very well be a violation of the statute. The statute was too broad, and the court declared it unconstitutional.
Would you mind reciting briefly the major provisions of the bill which has been introduced and point out how the bill does compare with the federal law?
Well, the language is almost verbatim with the federal law, and it says any person who uses money to procure the vote of a citizen, to buy the vote of a citizen, uses language close to that effect. And the rest of it is pretty much supplementary to that basic premise.
So the money aspect of it is emphasized as contrasted of lack of emphasis on that in the bill that was declared unconstitutional.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Nunn, tell us your committee assignments and how you got them. And before you answer that question, I will point out, and I'm sure the public realizes, that there was much talk before the convening of the organizational session that the Democratic majority was going to decide the Republicans that would be assigned to different committees. It came about as a result of a dispute with the Speaker of the House and the minority leader in the last session. Tell us what actually happened in regard to that, and how did you get on your committees, and what are they, and have you met with any committee yet?
Well, Mr. Barrickman, we did have an interesting first week in the organizational session. We had two capable men, Tom Jensen, an attorney from London, run against the floor leader, Bill Strong from Hazard, who was the current floor leader. As you pointed out, Don Blandford, the Speaker of the House, had some feelings against Bill Strong and had tried to say publicly that the minority caucus would be better served to elect a new leader. We did elect a new leader, but I feel like that from the people that I've talked with, that Tom Jensen was elected on his own qualifications, and there was no undue pressure that I heard from any Democrat relating to the Republicans electing their own leadership. I think that we are very fortunate to have a fellow of Tom Jensen's capabilities to step forward and lead our party, and it has created some harmony within the House itself, Republicans and Democrats, and we've come forward with some gains as far as the number of House seats we occupy, which of course leads us to occupy more seats on the committees. I was especially pleased with the committees that I was selected to be on. Counties and Special Districts is a committee that will have a favorable impact on Barron County and Metcalfe County, I hope, and I plan to be very involved in that because it has jurisdiction on matters concerning county organizations, county officials, magistrates, the volunteer fire departments and roads, things of that nature. And I'm very pleased to be on that committee and look forward to working on that, although there's nothing in the special session for that committee. Judiciary is the second committee that I'm on, and we will, I feel sure, pass some legislation towards a tougher DUI law for the state of Kentucky. There are certain alternatives out there that are being looked at. We had a committee meeting Thursday morning, which, because of the crisis in the Middle East, was adjourned early. So I have no committee experience. I haven't had a chance to sit in on a functioning committee meeting to find out exactly what the feelings are and hear from constituents out there. Although we had several come up. We had 3 come up from Allen County Thursday morning. I'm sure they were disappointed that we did not meet and they were not able to express themselves, but with the situation in the Middle East, I think everyone's attention was diverted, and it was going to be very difficult to proceed at that time. But we will meet this Wednesday, and I expect to be involved in the Judiciary Committee. The third committee that I'm on is Labor and Industry, and that also will be a good committee because our community is blessed with several industries, and while labor may not be a strong issue in this community, it will be a good committee assignment.
I was surprised, to be perfectly honest about it, that you got on the 3 committees that you did, particularly the Judiciary Committee, being a freshman member. You got on 3 very good committees. How did you manage that?
Well, I've been very pleased with my first week in the legislature. Already been able to accomplish something the first week of the legislature that others who'd been there for many years hadn't been able to accomplish. We had the tolls removed from the Bluegrass Parkway, and now it's $2.60 cheaper to go to Lexington and back than it was previously. But seriously, I was fortunate enough, I look at it fortunately, to be chosen to escort the governor from the House chamber, from his office to the House chamber and back. And a lot of people wanted to know how a freshman Republican was able to escort a Democrat governor. And Greg Stumbo, the floor leader for the Democrats, said that it was because there wasn't enough Democrats that wanted to escort him. But I took issue with that, and I explained to him that he wanted to talk about my loan at the bank.
Why? You think that had something to do with it?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I feel like that I go into Frankfort with an advantage over most freshman legislators in as much as I spent 4 years in Frankfort. I am familiar with the Capitol setting, and with many of the people who are there were there 20 years ago. And there's a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people that know me and know my father, and I'm fortunate in that respect. And I think that advantage has led me to receive a favorable seat assignment in the House chamber. I'm on the second row between two fine legislators, and to receive good committee assignments.
I congratulate you on your committee assignments, as I say, and honestly, I was surprised at the assignments that you got being a freshman in the minority party. So you do deserve commendations for that, however it occurred.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about the provisions of the DUI bill that has been introduced and will come before your committee?
Very briefly, there are 2 provisions within the governor's bill that have to do with what is called illegal per se, which, if I could read from this, it would be more informative, I think, to our our viewers than it would be for me to ad-lib it, because illegal per se and administrative per se are two items which are in the bill, and illegal per se means that an individual who has an alcohol reading of 0.10 or greater is guilty of driving under the influence. And for all practical purposes, that is the only relevant evidence. The only relevant evidence at the trial is whether the testing machine was working properly. So if this new bill is passed and a person is pulled over and blows into the breathalyzer and the reading is more than 0.09, then they will be guilty of driving under the influence, and the only alternative that they have is to prove that the machine was not working properly. Then administrative per se is where a person refuses to take the breathalyzer test, and he's going to lose his license regardless. It just takes away anybody's opportunity to refuse to take a breathalyzer's test and get out of being cited for driving under the influence.
Now, since you're not a lawyer, I'm going to shift to Senator Baker in regard to this bill. Doesn't that bill, or does it or doesn't the bill raise serious questions insofar as the due process clause of the federal Constitution is concerned?
Well, I felt it did. As you know, the Senate passed that bill in the 1990 session. I tried to amend out the administrative revocation provision, the provision which would allow your license to be taken simply on the basis of a policeman who pulled you over, but before you ever had a trial to determine whether or not you were or were not guilty. There are many people who feel that if someone has been charged, then you ought to punish him immediately. I don't share that concept of justice. I think there's plenty of opportunity in the courts to punish people if they are guilty, and as the courts are operated in this community, I don't think there's any problem with the existing DUI law, with perhaps one exception. I do believe we should be able to enhance the punishment based on an out-of-state DUI conviction. Kentucky's present law does not allow that, and that is contained in this proposal, and I think is a very wise provision. If someone goes down to Nashville and is picked up and convicted of driving under the influence, and then later comes to Glasgow and does a similar type of thing, that individual should be tried for a DUI second rather than for a DUI first, and if convicted should be given the greater punishment that a second conviction carries.
Mayor, we'll shift back to you. I know you are aware, as the public generally is, of the dangerous situation down here on South Green Street and the bypass, with a lack of sidewalk and with part of the excavation being piled up there. And would you explain to the public the problem, what's being done about it? And since we've got two members of the legislature here also, we might have some contact in Frankfurt if we need something done up there to get that problem solved. And I don't hesitate in saying it is a problem, and I know that the public is concerned about it and should be. What's the city doing about it? Why is it there? And is there any information at all as to when the public can expect it to be remedied?
I agree with you. It's a serious problem, and it's a terrible eyesore, and it's a safety hazard. We wish that we had the authority to do something about it. The problem is the Environmental Protection Agency performs tests when excavations are done like this, and in performing a test they found certain elements in the soil, that lead and benzene and others that they consider hazardous substances, which they are in certain levels, and they closed the site down. and said that they suspect a leak from some storage tank somewhere in the area that would cause these elements to be in the soil. And since they are hazardous, they have to be stopped from coming into the soil, and then this soil will probably have to be removed and hauled to a hazardous waste site. They told the contractor he had to stop the project right where it was while they investigated and decided what to do. We've been waiting a long time now while they investigate and decide what to do. The council has instructed the city attorney to contact Department of Transportation. I've already called Department of Transportation. They said they can't do anything. City attorney is contacting Environmental Protection Agency to see if we can get them off square one. They act like God's chosen people and make their own decisions, and if you don't like it, that's too bad. But that's their decision right now, and we can't seem to be able to hurry them up. We have requested that they hurry up. We've described the situation to them. They've been down here. They know what the situation is, but it's in their court. I don't know what they're going to do right now, except eventually they'll do something, but when, I don't know.
But you are talking about the state agency and not the federal insofar
Correct.
as the EPA is
Correct.
concerned.
Correct.
We can build some fire under them, and I think this next week, Charlie, Steve and I will go after them a little bit.
I certainly hope so. We've had some calls to other people in Frankfurt, supposedly, and I haven't seen any results out of it.
I would remind those who are listening once again that we certainly solicit questions from you. We hope you will call in and submit questions. We also hope that you will make suggestions for future programs and for future people to be panelists. And again, the number to call is 651-8341. Another thing that I am observing and also hearing some complaints about is the change in the north lane of the lane on the north side of the square, which used to have two lanes where you could turn right and also go through, and now has been put down to one lane, and it creates a problem with traffic backing up that would be turning right. And I was wondering if that was done I realize that the state controls the street there, that is the highway, but I was wondering if the city suggested that, or if there was any consultation with the city if the state did it, and if you've had any complaints about it.
We had complaints before the state did anything. Of course, we had the situation we thought that we could live with before we had the square repaved. You know, the state does control those streets through there. They're part of the highway system, state highway system. The square, considered part of the state highway system, and last summer, I guess it was, the state repaved all of that. And when they did, I guess it was summer before last, they paved all that, and of course when they did, the lines, the turning lanes and so forth disappeared, and they had to put up new ones. And when they placed new ones there, they finished with a lane going out West Main so that you would hit head-on with a car coming in West Main from West Main onto the square. And that was a bad situation. We had two cars would line up, especially you had one from out of town, would get in the wrong lane there, would get over in the right lane, and then try to go straight ahead. And people in the right lane would also, the left lane would also be going straight ahead. And you'd have two cars going straight ahead, meeting another car head on. And that was a very bad situation. There were some very close calls there. And people were complaining very badly about that. So we asked the highway engineers to come down and investigate this situation. They made a study of it, advised us to remove a parking place from diagonal parking and make it parallel, which would give more room there. and then they were going to move everything over to the right a little bit. So we did change our parking. The last couple of parking places there that were diagonal were removed, and one parallel was put in its place, one car parallel with the curb, which gives more room to the right. And then they were to rearrange those lanes. Well, when they got through, you have what we have there now. There are 2 lanes going to the right of the straight ahead. There's one going straight ahead and one that could go down the hill, but it's not clearly marked. I don't think they did a good job marking it.
It's
And
not marked at all.
I think the sign should be sitting way back. We told them this, and well, there's some markings up over the street, I think. We have poorly marked intersection there.
They corrected one problem, as I see it, which it did need to be corrected, but they created another one
I agree with you.
by not putting in proper markings and creating 2 lanes so that you can turn right. And the way it is now, you have people that are going through that get right in the middle of that wide lane and nobody can turn right.
I agree with you.
Is there anything these 2 gentlemen can help you with in getting that cleared up?
I don't know, Uhel, that it needs anything except to have the state highway engineers come over and redo this thing, and we are requesting that. And when they get here, I hope that they will do a better job. And that's all that I can say. That I wish we had the authority to go up there and mark it the way Glasgow people understand it, but evidently they have their own ideas, and they are engineers, and they think that they know best, and so that's what they did. And hopefully we'll get them back and get it better shape.
I'm aware of your problem there. I did serve on the city council many years ago, back in the 50s, and even then we had problems with them. Again, it's part of the bureaucratic system. Senator, I assume that the bill involving landfills has already been introduced?
Bill has been introduced. It's in committee, I suppose, in both the House and the Senate. And that's really the extent of my knowledge. I had a briefing on it, or as a member of the West Kentucky Caucus, I was present at a briefing on the bill by Senator Greg Higdon, who is now the Democratic whip in the Senate, and during the previous session was the chairman of the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, which is the committee that has jurisdiction over landfills. He spoke for about an hour, and when he got through speaking, I had the distinct impression that we might be better off with no bill than we would be with the bill that has been introduced. It seemed to me that there are a couple of variables that the bill does not take into consideration. One are the federal regulations that are still, I think, in the process of being promulgated and refined. The second are the state regulations, which have, I think, been filed with the LRC, but there's a lot of discontent about them. And either one or both of those things can be changed, or may be changed. And yet if we go and enact a statute, then we're locked in. We're building a house on a sandy foundation that's constantly shifting. And it's not in my area of expertise, and it's not in any of the committees that I serve on, but I just feel a little bit shaky about the bill that has been proposed. And I know Mayor Honeycutt has talked to me about it, has talked to Representative Nunn. Various members of the council have mentioned problems that we have with it. And there are really no easy answers. I've had one of my county judges was up this week, and a member of his fiscal court saying, Senator, do not impose mandatory garbage collection on us unless you give us some way of paying for it. He says our county does not have the resources. This was Butler County in that instance. They just passed a 1% payroll tax, county payroll tax over there. And he said, we're strained even with that. We can't go out and ask the people for a tax increase to collect all this garbage.
Does the bill which has been introduced provide for mandatory garbage pickup?
I have not read the bill, but my understanding is it does.
Are you saying that from what you understood from this hour session that you spoke of a moment ago, that there are a lot of things that can be done under the present law and the present federal law that would correct, that is, with the right regulation, that would correct a lot of the problems that the bill is supposedly addressing?
I think that's correct, with the exception, perhaps, of trying to deal in some constitutional way with the influx of out-of-state garbage into Kentucky. Of course, that's a two-way street. We also export garbage from Kentucky. Probably in terms of hazardous waste, we export 95 or 100% of our hazardous waste from this state, basically, I believe, Mayor, to Alabama. So when you start building walls to keep somebody out, you may erect walls to keep yourself in. And we don't want to get into that situation.
That brings me around to another question for you, Mayor. Has there been or is there being any study made or any proposals being made in the city to require some program of recycling of our garbage?
Not to require it at this time. The new regulations that are proposed will ultimately require it if they are passed. Just to also give a little background on what Senator Baker said here, the County Judges Association is very strongly opposing these new regulations, and many aspects of them. And of course, the mandatory collection is one aspect that they are opposing. The mandatory collection, however, is the only way, in my opinion, you get enough funds, enough people to share the load of these new regulations they're proposing so that anybody can afford to pay for them. Recycling will help reduce some of the costs, but if you still have to put in millions of dollars worth of big plastic liners and test wells and sewer lines running out of the bottom of the landfill to your sewer system and perform several tests each year at $1,000 a test, and have all the things that these new requirements contain, the expense is going to be so high that we're going to have to share the cost with more people. Either that or reduce some of these requirements. The recycling, in the new bill, they require us to reduce the amount coming into the landfill by 25% in a short number of years. And in order to do that, you're going to have to do some recycling. We can do it by recycling paper, cans, and by putting yard waste into a special compost section. And we believe we can handle it all right, the 25% reduction. And recycling definitely is a thing of the future, but it's not required now. And we are going to start it February the 1st with two items, paper and cans. And we'll have a central pickup point down by the big Houchin store. And that's a very small beginning. To make it where it's going to really make a dent in the landfill, it's going to take curbside recycling where the householder recycles into several different containers before it's picked up by the city.
And that would be purely voluntary, though?
At this time, yes, sir.
Would you like to add something?
I'd like to comment on the waste management proposal. Two items which Senator Baker and I were involved in the Western Kentucky caucus, and he commented on it, but to me the real essence of the bill and the concern that I have is that we must be very careful in mandating universal garbage collection, because it will become a profit-motivated enterprise, and we're going to mandate something and cast it out on our constituents, and we may be caught at the mercy of whoever is operating these regional landfills, and our costs may escalate without regard to actual cost incurred. So the real concern is that our people are going to be paying more than is necessary so that whoever's in control of these landfills can make money. Then the second concern that I have, which I've discussed with Mayor Honeycutt, is that the Cabinet for Natural Resources and Environmental Protection, which we will be creating to oversee this bill as the governor has it now, will become all-powerful and will be something akin to the Internal Revenue Service, and they think that they know everything and they're going to control everything, and there's no appeals process. We have no recourse. If we have an inspector who's having a bad day, he comes to the Glasgow landfill, and we're working in good faith trying to cooperate and follow the regulations, and he's mad and he finds something wrong out there, he could shut us down, and we would have no recourse other than go to the court system, which oftentimes can take a considerable amount of time to find any recourse there. So those are two concerns. First is the people carrying the burden, which they ultimately do in every situation, and we're mandating that here. We've got to be careful that we don't put too much burden on them and open it up for profiteering. And then the second is that we don't want to create another bureaucracy that's all-powerful that can control us and take us too far.
Thank you. Mayor, we're getting some calls.
Good.
And one of them, at the intersection of College and Broadway, someone that says that there's an old Larry's safe car location and that there are some gasoline storage tanks that have been dug up there. And they point out that that could be a safety hazard for younger children. And the question is there anything that can be done about them?
I'll ask the building inspector to look into that. I don't know what the situation is. I know where the location is. I wasn't aware that there are gasoline storage tanks. Are they talking about the holes that were left or the tanks themselves, or do you know?
I gather that they're talking about the storage tanks.
The storage tanks would be governed by certain regulations that we have, zoning and standards that the building inspector would be enforcing, and possibly the fire department too if there's fire dangers there. I can certainly have it investigated.
We have some questions also about the bypass. When will the barrels be removed?
I can't answer that. That's, of course, up to the contractor. When the contractor thinks that the project is finished enough that he doesn't need them, then I suppose he will remove them. Of course, the bypass has not been completed. This south end yet is not finished, and the north end has not been started.
Which raises the question of when are they going to do the other end? Has the contract been let? I understood, I think, now I'm going on hearsay, that there was a contract bid and it was rejected.
That's correct. It was bid, I believe, in October, November, and there was only one bid, and I'm told it was above the engineering estimates for the job, so the contract was rejected and it will be rebid.
That bidder also, according to the Courier-Journal news report, said given campaign contributions apparently to the wrong candidate in an upcoming gubernatorial primary, that may or may not have affected the action of the state.
I have heard some rumors to that effect. I don't know anything about it other than I hear rumors about a lot of things, you know.
I'd like to say one thing. I don't know anything about that particular contract either, although I do know that that contractor did get the contract for $68 and $80, and I understand he's going to do that.
I had understood the same thing, and that would indicate that it's some fiction rather than fact insofar as the rumor was concerned.
Well, it casts a little doubt on it anyway.
Or got his problem worked out.
Yeah, right.
Well, as a politician, I guess you ought to know, Senator. With Glasgow growing, another question is that with the city growing, what can be done to help the growth of good-paying jobs instead of more and more low-paying jobs?
That's a good question. I would guess that what we have to do is get plenty of competition for the people that work here so that employers will have to pay a better wage. And the more jobs we have, the more competition, the better wages the employer would have to pay. And we're working on that all the time.
Well, that brings me to the next question then. Are there any hot industrial prospects at the time?
Yes, sir.
Present time?
Yes, sir, there are. In fact, I'll be spending time with one Monday, and I believe one Friday. And we do have some good prospects. Glasgow is a good location for industry, as has been proven in the past. And we've been fortunate. Not only have we had new factories locate, but we have factories in the process of expanding and adding more jobs, such as Tyson is in the process of opening up a new line, which will mean 100 people come back to work there, and added 100 employees as to what they had before they added a new line. Spantech has expanded. R.R. Donnelly has expanded, and the wholesale drugs, can't think of the name of it, took over the old Coke plant location.
Vanguard.
Vanguard Labs has also expanded and added more jobs. So we've been very fortunate in having factories that are already here expand and add jobs. And of course, ACK is proposed to have 300 jobs. They are hiring an additional 35 this coming week.
That's good news. Any prospects for somebody taking the building that Teledyne is in when they leave?
Well, first of all, it's not certain that Teledyne is going to leave. The state is negotiating with the top corporation officials of Teledyne, and they're trying to convince them that they might move some other divisions in here rather than leave. Problems here in Glasgow with that plant didn't originate here in Glasgow. There are union problems that developed in the state of Ohio. And in order to deal with that union, finally, the company Teledyne threw up their hands and said we're going to close down the whole division. And so that's where we are now on that. And they are negotiating with the state. The state hopes that we'll be able to keep that open and get something else in here. If they do leave, then we think it is a good facility, and we think we'll be able to get something else in there.
Getting back to the Larry Safecar question, there's been another call in, I presume by the same person that made the original call, and the question is not was not storage, but the storage tanks, but the hole in the ground where the water is standing. The person is concerned about the safety of children going by there.
Once again, I'll ask the building inspector to look at that Monday and see what situation is and what the plans are, but certainly that hole will have to be refilled.
Another viewer has called in with a very interesting question, and it involves what has been a problem here off and on for years, and that is concerning dogs. The viewer wants to know if there is a leash law. They want to know who to call to solve the dog problems. Apparently this viewer called the police, and they said, call a lawyer. Well,
I don't
what's your
understand.
answer to that?
I don't understand that answer. The police should have referred this person to the dog catcher, unless it was a barking dog problem or something like that. In that case, you have to let lawyers handle that. We can't handle that. Yes, there is a leash law. Answer the first part of the question. It's illegal for dogs to run loose. They have to either be on a leash or inside a fence. If they get loose and are outside, then they should call the dog pound. And that's, of course, that dog pound has working hours. They're not on duty 24 hours a day. They're not on duty on Saturdays or Sundays, and they're working hours during the week that they must call at that time. And if they don't get them, then they should leave a message on the answering machine. Many people are hesitant to use the answering machine. If all else fails, call me. I'll take the message and get it to them.
Another question, is the Hampton Inn coming to Glasgow? If so, when and where?
All I know is rumors, and I don't talk about rumors.
A very good suggestion and a question here also says, how about turning downtown buildings into housing? Would there be a zoning problem?
No, there would be no zoning problem. Houses are legal anywhere. The only problem is those buildings are privately owned, and we can't dictate to the owners of those buildings what they do with them. And many of the owners of those buildings don't even live in this state. There are some buildings down there that are owned by as many as 4 different people, heirs to different estates and things, which makes it very difficult to deal with those folks. One of the buildings right now, a J.J. Newberry building, is involved in a lawsuit. And it's difficult to do anything with that building while they're all tied up in a lawsuit. So there are many problems with empty commercial buildings, and the city can't force people to do something with them. They have to do it on their own.
Is there any possibility of getting some grant money from either the state or the federal government for turning some of those buildings into housing projects, insofar as you know?
No. The federal government has stopped building that sort of project, and the only thing they're doing right now, unless there's some kind of new program opens up, Section 8 type housing, where they will take a house that's already in existence and will guarantee to that landlord a certain rent so that he can lower the rent down low enough to help low-income people rent that house at a very reasonable rate. Then the government pays a part of that rent and the tenant pays a part of it.
Question for you, Steve. What item on the legislative agenda during this special session is most important to you and why?
Well, I would say that there are 2 very important items, 2 most important items. That would be the solid waste bill, because it affects Glasgow significantly. It affects our community, and what happens is going to have a financial impact on every citizen in our area. The second issue would be the DUI legislation in trying to make our roads safer for our families and for everyone.
Question for you, Senator. Where is the lottery money going? Is any of it going for education?
The lottery money is going the same place that the sales tax money is going, corporation income tax money is going, personal income tax money is going. It's going into the state treasury. Out of that treasury, the General Assembly, by the appropriations bills, appropriates the money. It's not earmarked as such for any particular item. There were promises that the lottery money would be used for this or for that, but basically it's part of the money that goes into the state treasury and then is appropriated for state needs.
This brings me to perhaps some of the issues that may arise in the next or the upcoming governor's campaign. There are some candidates, I think perhaps in both parties, that are saying that the recent tax legislation by the last regular session was in excess of what was required to fund the new education system. My first question is that a fact? And my second question is, if it is a fact, wasn't the other money, the additional money, needed to meet some other mandated requirements by the state, and possibly some more from some needed money for roads and things of that nature?
Well, you can take your figures and read into them any result you want to achieve, depending on where you start and what assumptions you make. Some people looking at the 1990 budget and the revenue increases say that 93% of the additional funding went into education. To reach that high percentage, you have to include the workplace cabinet, which is a new name for vocational education area and some other things that we do trying to work with our adult population. I think a more accurate figure is about 60% of the increase funding went for education. I think that's a more realistic number in lay terms, looking at the figures and where the money's going. There are many candidates on both sides of the political spectrum who want to roll the tax back in one way or another. I think they're going to have difficulty doing it. There were a lot of appropriations that, in my judgment, were gilding the lily, that were added on by members of the appropriations committees of the House and the Senate for their own individual districts. Had I been a member of that committee, I probably would have done the same thing for my community. But I think there is valid criticism directed at that area. But I think basically the additional funding was needed. I don't think we're ever going to achieve the type of educational system we want in this Commonwealth unless we're willing to pay for it. If you aren't willing to pay for it, then you're going to get something less than what you might have gotten.
You have a very unusual item on this special session agenda, impeachment. The public generally, I don't believe, is aware of the implications of that and what it's all about. Would you briefly explain that?
Well, unfortunately and sadly, one of our state constitutional officials, a former member of the House of Representatives, Ward Butch Burnett from down extreme western Kentucky, Commissioner Burnett has been convicted of 2 different felonies growing out of 2 separate situations. He has been asked by the governor to resign. He's been asked by others to resign. Today, I believe, in the Franklin Circuit Court, at 9 o'clock this morning, he was committed into the penal system to serve his 1-year penitentiary sentence. The House members are presently working on articles of impeachment. That's, in effect, an indictment in the legislative arena. It's the only way that a constitutional officer can be removed from office. If the House chooses to approve the article or articles of impeachment, then those charges will be brought to the state Senate. The 38 members of the Senate will be sworn as a court of impeachment pursuant to the Constitution. And we then will try whatever the charges are against Burnett, presumably his conviction of a felony and involving his duties as a public official. If the Senate, after hearing the evidence, chooses to approve the impeachment, to vote the impeachment, then Mr. Burnett would be removed from office and would be barred from ever holding an office of honor or trust in this Commonwealth. It's a very sad situation. It's only occurred twice before in the history of this Commonwealth. Once in the 1880s when the state treasurer disappeared with the entire treasury. He was tried in absentia and convicted. Once in 1916 when the Macquarie County judge was tried and acquitted in the trial before the Senate. It's just a very sad situation, should not have occurred, but it is occurring, and we've got to deal with it and deal with it pursuant to the Constitution.
Until very recently, I'd say within the last 10 years, the actual trial, insofar as the federal Constitution is concerned, was done by the entire Senate sitting as a court. Within the last 10 years, there have been some impeachment of some federal judges. The actual trial was conducted by a Senate committee. The committee then made a recommendation to the Senate as a whole, and the Senate as a whole voted on, in essence, the recommendation of the committee. Now, if there is a bill of impeachment passed by the House and the Senate has to conduct the trial, will it be by committee or by the whole Senate, or do you know?
That's a judgment the Senate will have to reach in adopting the rules of procedure under which we will operate. Senator Maloney of Fayette County and I have been delegated the task of preparing those rules and presenting them to the Senate. Our recommendation will be that the entire Senate sit and hear whatever charges are brought before us.
Our time is about up. Apparently we have just a minute or so left. I want to thank each one of you for appearing here. I also again invite the listeners to send in questions, to send in suggestions about topics that you would like to hear about, and also questions that you'd like to ask your elected officials or members of commissions of the city, or anything about the city government, or even the county government. After all, we do have people that in the city that should be interested in the county government, because we pay taxes to the county government as well as the city government, and we certainly would like to have some questions concerning county government and county officials on the program from time to time. So again, thank you for listening. We hope that we have presented some answers that you were interested in, and we are expecting to hear more and more from the public. Good night.